Welcome back, everybody. This is what you wanted. Episode 8, the finale. This is the Hollywood Critics Association after show of the After Party. And as I like to say, we are the After Party. And this one is very special because now we get to talk everything, all our theories, everybody that called me out in the comments and everything. We are here to talk about the show, our final thoughts. We want to hear your thoughts because I'll still read those comments even though we'll be done with the show. And I'll try to, look for you on some other show to call you out on to see if you're listening. So, well, I'm Rick Hong, and I'm joined by my other friends, my other co-hosts, my other detectives. And to the right of me is the outlaw, John Rocha. John, where can everybody find you?
Oh, you can always find me at The Rocha Says and on my outlet, The Outlaw Nation, there on youtube.com/John Rocha Says. And I'm excited. Let's find out if we were all right or all wrong. Let's do this.
If we do the Caddy Corner Brady Bunch thing, I've got Adriana. So Adriana, where can everybody find you?
So you can find me on my website at thecinemasoloist.org, and then you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Adriana in Bloom.
And below me, I've got Jana. Jana, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, Jana on Camera. Also on my website, I also collaborate with mamasguide.com, and also in Gazeta News is the Brazilian newspaper. Whoop.
Awesome. Okay, so we had this conversation for the last episode. It was all about Danner. It didn't necessarily push the story forward in terms of the whodunit aspect of it, but we got more into the mindset of Danner. And this one was entitled Maggie. You'd almost think, cute little thumbnail and everything. Maggie was cute, but you almost want to sit there and say like the killer as the title for the final episode. And, sure enough, we open on this and Danner is talking to Maggie and she has kind of her cute, fast, luckily, which I appreciated because this is something else that I brought up is how do you wrap up this show in an episode when there's a lot of suspects still kind of there? And then now you're interviewing the 6-year-old. It's like, I appreciated the fact that they were really quick with her story. I think they did hers in like 5 minutes or something. And then they expanded. And as they expanded the story, there's a little bit of the whole, okay, it's this person, it's that person. But like the whole thing about episode 7 with Danner is we saw like how her mind worked, how she put everything, all the pieces together. And the killer is Yasper.
Yeah.
We all knew.
Yeah.
So and we had it wrapped down to Yasper and Walt, and I know that we definitely had viewers, listeners chiming that it was Yasper as well. So John, now that it's Yasper and everything, how do you feel? What do you think? Reactions, thoughts?
I loved it. I thought it was great. And the way they showed it was so brilliant too. Like you could assume, because eventually they were kind of weeding out everybody. And Yasper seemed to be the guy who always seemed to be kind of on top of stuff. And we got a little hint of his issues with Xavier a few episodes ago. I gave him his name, and then we went back to that high school episode and we saw how he treated him. And so there's a certain amount of jealousy that obviously goes into this, but there's a real genuine pain and hurt that he was left behind. That's kind of how he feels like my life didn't turn out the way I expected. And just about everyone else has some disappointment in their lives, obviously, at some stage in all the high school people that are there, or former high school people that are there. But his was the most extreme because his could have really hit the heights. And that's what he really wanted. And in the end, when he couldn't get it, it was very believable. And Xavier's destruction of him when they have that interaction flashback by the bar was so perfect because he's right. That was what was so interesting too. Xavier was right. You wanted to stop being friends with me. You did this. You did that. So now you have to live with the consequences of what you did when I was a nerd and you were making fun of me and all this stuff. And so I think we figured it out step by step. Certainly within the first few episodes, I think we all were guessing might have been Yasper. And then now the way it played out was so perfect. And, we're good detectives. That's all I can say. We're Danners.
Well, yeah, Yasper's like the drummer that Ringo replaced for the Beatles.
Yeah, he's a Pete Best. Yes. Great.
Yes. So, Adriana, how about your thoughts knowing that Yasper is the killer?
At first I was convinced it was Walt, but as you guys, like, especially John, when you were like giving your argument about Yasper, I was like, oh yeah, it probably is him, because he has like this unhealthy obsession with Xavier, trying to have him bless the track, and like, you know, like, hey, we're best friends, and almost like, but you know, every time you see him interacting with Xavier's just kind of like, you know, like kind of like trying to brush him off. So he almost seemed unhinged from the get-go, in my opinion. And he's all, I did mention like they were showing him on his phone constantly. And then they did mention that tiny little detail, like his phone says his name Yasper on it. And then he had another phone the whole time. It's a tiny little detail, I guess you really have to go back and notice, which I really liked. But yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy, because he's, like you said, he's the person who's been on top of everything. He's kind of, I think they were finally gearing towards it when it was him, when like during Maggie's story, kind of pops out from behind the couch as a puppet, and he's like, hey, do you want to draw on him? And then I figured, oh, it might be him. This might be like the reveal that it might be him, because he kind of looks suspicious when the way he just kind of eases up from behind the couch, and he's just kind of there, like he's like you said, he's trying to cover all his bases. So
yeah.
Jana, how about for you, watching this final episode, thoughts, reactions that Yasper is the killer?
Yeah, I not that I knew, but I was like, he was on my first suspect since the beginning, because he was not the beginning, but like when I watched like episode 3, 4, I already knew he might be one on my list of suspects, because he did all the wiring for Xavier house. He was like all into Xavier, and then little by little we ended up like finding out what happened to them, and then I was like, whoa, I knew it. I knew. But of course I also thought that it was Zoe at some point.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Walt was my second suspect because of the behavior that happened to him, but we knew all along that could be him.
Okay, so let's talk about the suspects, like who we thought. So, okay, and a lot of the times we kept bringing up Walt. In this episode, I thought that it was funny that Maggie's version of Walt is a puppet, and you know, and all he keeps saying is Walt, 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 Walt. But John, so what do you think about Walt not being the killer? Because like for a while, you know, when we first started watching the series, and as we were kind of going through the episodes, you know, I knew that, you know, you had that thing for him, saying like, that guy's fishy. I don't know if he really went to school with them. So are you disappointed maybe that he's not the killer? Or are you like, I'm okay with how this played out?
You know, yeah, I am okay, because there what would have been the motivation for Walt? And I think they would have had to show us a really deep motivation. If it wasn't going to be some kind of accident or some kind of explosion of having him say his name, they would have had to do a lot of explanation in the last episode to get us to understand why it would be Walt. And I don't know if it would have 100% worked, you know, and I like the idea that what in the end is he's just a kid who wanted to be noticed. And it's a nice juxtaposition. All Walt wants is for people to remember his name. What Yasper wants is for millions of people to know his name. And there's the difference, right? For Walt, it's about getting seen, getting noticed. For Yasper, it's something more notorious or more sinister. And so for me, I was fine with it. And he came off as a sympathetic character, even though he was socially awkward, socially weird. The fact that he was obsessed with streaking, the one thing this is the extreme that his brain went to in order to be remembered. I'm going to go full on naked and run through a crowd of people. And twice he was stopped from doing so in high school, and then here at the party. So to me, in the end, he came off as a very sympathetic character, and I didn't mind that it wasn't him. And now I like the guy at the end of the day, and I love that moment with him and Chelsea, where Chelsea says, "Everyone's going to remember your name now, Walt." And so that's all he wanted. Such a simple thing. So,
John, man, right now, I don't believe that you're lying to me because you didn't even tell that guy happy belated birthday.
I know. I
So
apologize.
forget about it. Forget about it. Okay, Adriana, how about for you? Because again, last episode we were talking, we had Yasper on our list. We had Walt on our list. Do you agree with John? Are you okay with the fact that he's not the killer, that just wanting to be accepted among your peers isn't enough motivation to throw somebody off of a balcony?
Yeah, I think I'm okay because as time goes by, he doesn't seem. They may try to, like in Chelsea's episode, they make him look sinister, but he really is. He's just kind of an awkward guy. I don't know if I can use the term innocent, but he does seem kind of like, I don't know about naive, but like he said, he thinks of streaking as a way to get people's attention, and he's just kind of like, hey. So he's almost just like he doesn't seem to have the capacity to actually want to kill someone because like Xavier. Like someone like Xavier, he would probably want his attention, like, but not like necessarily kill him for it, but just like, just a simple acknowledgement. So,
Jana, how about for you? So, you talked about it. So how about it? Are you disappointed maybe that they didn't take the route of saying that Walt was a killer? Are you okay, like satisfied to say, wanting to be accepted is not motivation enough to actually, like as John said, just like he just wanted people to like know his name, but not necessarily the world to know his name.
Yeah, I agree with John, and also agree with Adriana, and I'm not disappointed that he wasn't the killer, but I think that he was just want to be loved by high school, and what happened to him on high school, I don't think it was like that big of a deal to like push Xavier to kill Xavier. I think I'm okay that he's not. And now I like him.
See?
I like him, Walt.
I do like him.
It's interesting for me because you guys have heard me say it all the episodes. I was always like, where is Jennifer 2? I wanted it to be Jennifer 2, but there weren't enough episodes. However, I'll give myself props because Danner even talked about it, where I said about martyrdom, and I talked about California Love. I talked about the Super Bowl, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and even Danner brings up Tupac. I brought up Tupac, so I wasn't quite saying Yasper was the killer necessarily, but I was like saying there's something about someone dying young and always being remembered in that sense. So, John, do you think that it was? What do you think? Like we find out what happened with Jennifer 2.
Yeah.
So, do you think that like if we went 2 more episodes, like instead of going eight episodes, and we went 10 episodes to maybe explore a little bit more about Jennifer 2 and a little bit more maybe about Ned, that the series you would feel more fulfilled with this series? Or do you think like, hey, you know what? You dragged it on long enough, and that little wrap up, that little story about Jennifer 2 was enough. And that nugget was dropped earlier, or that Easter egg that we kind of glazed over a little bit.
Yeah. Not only that, her water was dropped as well. But no, I mean, for me, I wasn't too curious on Jennifer 2 unless she was going to be the killer, so I didn't need to see more. Ned certainly came off as a guy that we pretty much got him in the high school episode and who he is, and so there wasn't much that we needed to explore here. Indigo is the one that I feel a little bit let down by, because we do get 5 to 8 minutes of her black and white Chanel commercial vignette when she's remembering things, but I would have liked to have seen a whole episode done like a European black and white movie, all in subtitle in French. That would have been genius to do that, because I mean they were doing all the different styles per episode, different kind of film genre styles per episode. I would have liked to have seen something like that with Indigo. She's the one I feel like we didn't see too much of. And remember, when we see the flashback with Yasper, she's the one that's behind, that Yasper lands behind when he jumps off the balcony after he's killed Xavier. So, and she does a little look. So how much did Indigo actually know? So I would have liked to have seen a whole episode with her. She's the only one for me.
Adriana, how about for you? Were you satisfied the fact that we had 8 episodes? They wrapped up Jennifer 2. They wrapped up the Ned character. And as John said, he feels like there's still a hole with Indigo. But were you happy to say 8 episodes? Or do you think, you know what, we could have gone maybe even 9? It's like, not that, like, usually like shows like to normally like be 6, 8, 10, but if like there was just one more episode because they used the episode 7 on Danner. Adriana, what do you think?
I do agree with John. I would have liked to see more of Indigo. I didn't really have a desire to see much more of Ned or Jennifer too, but the way I wasn't completely satisfied with how like she disappeared and literally she's in like a couple seconds of the child's flashback and they say her water broke. But I was like, wait a second, that's a little bit of a plot hole because when your water breaks, shouldn't you call the hospital or something? And she's like, oh, my water breaks. And she kind of just walks away. And that's that. But I thought that was kind of weird. But other than that, I didn't really have much desire to see her. But just that little brief moment, I think it explained it. But at the same time, it was just like, what? Her water broke. She didn't call for anyone, and she literally just left the house by herself. That's kind of odd. But
Jana, how about for you? So they wrapped up the Jennifer 2 storyline, you know, and like Ned wasn't really a big factor in this. You know, the outlaw John Rocha said that, hey, that he felt like the high school episode kind of like told us Ned's story. But John, how about for you? Would you want maybe one or two more episodes instead of a Danner episode, we had it on some of those other characters, or the whole of not having Indigo, or were you satisfied with just, hey, the 8 episodes worked for me?
Yeah, I agree with John and Adriana on the Indigo episode. I think we are missed because she's a very strong character, and she has so much to add to the story. And I miss that episode. I miss some little bit more detail on that. But Jennifer too, when the water broke, I think I don't know if episode 4 or 5, someone mentioned that she's in labor. That's why I was like, I think it was okay. I was okay. I don't need Jennifer 2, the other Jennifer or Ned episode, a full episode for them. You know what I mean? So, but I think it was a good size of series, like 8 episodes. It's good.
Okay, so then, what did you guys think of how Danner breaks down everything? So how they did the storytelling, the editing in terms of like, okay, this was this. You know, John, you mentioned how like we see Yasper drop from behind Indigo. Yeah. You know, in one sequence, the live sequences, I think there were 2 live sequences where we see, you know, Yasper coming on one side of the screen with the animated scene, and then Danner's calling him out and saying, but you said you came in from the other side of the screen. So, John, how did you like how the pieces were put together to tell us the story of like, here are all the little clues of why I know that Yasper is a killer?
It really worked for me because it was kind of brilliant in that because of episode 7. Episode 7, as we talked about on our previous review here, we got to see the background of Danner. We got to see how smart Danner actually is. Even when it seems like she's not that smart or seems like she's not aware of things, she's actually really smart. And it would have been kind of tough to believe that the guy who didn't have the intelligence to achieve success and was lost in jealousy would have the intelligence to pull off the perfect murder. And so for me to have him make that mistake about how everyone's saying he came in through this side, but he says he came in through that side, I thought that was a brilliant little small thing. And then, of course, the stuff with the audio equipment being turned up to 10 made sense as to why Danner interviewed Maggie in this episode to find out what she had done. And Danner, going back to that flashback where they're putting the little cat thing by the levels there, or by the knobs, that made so much sense. So the way they kind of pieced everything together, I liked it. I thought it actually worked for me. It was inventive for a show like this. You know what I'm saying? This isn't like a high-end mystery thriller, but it was inventive for a show like this and the level to which they had presented these characters through the first 7 episodes. So for me, that totally absolutely worked. And Ben Schwartz's acting here, as it's slowly dawning on him that she has got him, and him more and more defensive until she does the call to the phone in his pocket, and you're just like, oh man, that just brilliant. And because of that 7th episode, we are able to buy what happens here because we are invested into believing that Danner's a damn good detective. So yeah.
Adriana, how about for you? Did you like how the clues, like Danner was dropping everything, saying like I was like talking about how, you know, when in a couple episodes, how like Yasper comes in on one side of the screen. In his episode, he comes in on the other side of the screen. How did you like how she kind of laid everything out? And I don't know, maybe throughout the episodes too, you even noticed yourself one of those things by chance.
I really enjoyed how she did it. I thought it was great. So at first you think like how she goes to everyone and she's like Chelsea, and then starts like kind of narrating everything and like reciting everything and bringing in all the details. Then she goes and then finally goes to that thing between Brett and Walt. And then they're like, wait a second. And then Anique speaks up. So she's doing all this like convoluted like mind games to get people to speak up and get more last minute information out of them so she can point them in the right direction. So I really like how she did that. And I also really like Ben Schwartz's acting, how he's just kind of like, wait a second, you know, maybe you should ask these people. I really like that. So I thought that was great. And I did like that she questioned the little girl. So while I think she was an unconventional choice, I noticed, I don't have children, but I noticed with children, they don't have a lot of a filter. So I think it was smart to interview her because children don't really think, they're not going to probably try to lie, or most children are not going to try to lie or like play down things. They're just going to speak what's on their mind. And she's like, oh, I was having fun. This is what happened. You know, and while she has like her skewed child perspective, she's actually pretty much filling in little details that weren't in before. So I think that was great. Her in the mix, even though it did seem like what when they first announced like, oh, we're going to interview the child, but
no, I got it to piggyback off of what you're saying. Yeah, to piggyback off of what you're saying too. I got to give kudos to Ike Barinholtz, Brett, who plays Brett, because he had to do so many of the different versions of her story. You know, it's like, was it a loud voice? Was it a nice voice? You know, and everything else. So like, and I thought his expressions just were hilarious when he was doing that, and and trying to follow, like how she's talking, and then he's got to talk at the same time too. So Jana, how about for you then? I mean, how did you like watching how the episode unfolds and how Danner's going back and telling like who it is? At one point in time, like she keeps going through like the different foods. She watching trying to tell a story. It's like, will you just tell us who did it already?
I really enjoyed this episode. I love that they interview the little girl Maggie, and as Adriana said, kids, they don't lie. They don't like try to fantasize. They fantasize stuff, but they don't lie. They tell straight to you, like, if this is blue, they're gonna say, oh, it's blue. They're not gonna tell you that it's light blue. It's blue. Doesn't matter. So I love her the way that they did. It was very quick, and it's just like, and then also this detail to put her telling a scene of the hungry hypo. Sometimes kids go on the other side. It was amazing. I thought it was like fantastic detail when kids are telling a story. I love that. We have that at home, so sometimes it goes to the other side. Regarding Danner, I love her the way that she did, and she was like, the eating part was like, oh, okay, but she likes to eat, right? She brought popcorn to the interview, like when she was questioning people, and she was like, oh, but this and that, and explain. I think was amazing. Like, in the editing was the pace that they did, the way that they did was good too. I liked it. I was really good, really.
So we have the series, 8 episodes, and so far, we've solved this mystery of the after party. And I was thinking, can this get a second season? Who do you follow? And so as we're watching the show, there is the hint of Danner talking to Anique and saying like, hey, here's my card or whatever. And I was watching it and I was thinking, it did make me think to the Agatha Christie stories of using the Kenneth Branagh character for Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express. So if a season 2 comes back and they decide to use Danner, do you think is that something that you would want to see? Or do you think, hey, you know what? I like this series. I thought that the way that they used everybody, it was wrapped up really, really well. Or, you know what? Tiffany Haddish as a detective would be kind of cool to watch at least another season just to see how they play it out. John, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I'd love another season. Are you kidding? Yeah, I mean, now that we've got a better idea of who Danner is, and we've got Reed Scott as a villain because he's always great playing the villain as Jermaine, I'm 100% on board. And then having her work with Sam Richardson, who is, I think, one of the co-creators of, well, at least one of the. Sorry, he co-created something else. Sorry, he's one of the big leads here in this series. Their chemistry, their interaction, it works so well, and so I would love to see them both come together. And wouldn't it be interesting if they had to break Yasper out of prison or get him out of prison because they want some help for AV stuff or what? There's got to be a way to weave Ben Schwartz back into this because he's so essential to the success of the overall show. So for me, those are the three pieces you need to have back. John Ely is great as her, other detective, but he didn't really have a standout moment, and he did his thing. If you want to enjoy John Ely, you got to watch that show that's on HBO Max now. Oh, God, Search Party, is that was? Yeah, you got to watch Search Party.
Yeah, this guy's amazing.
He's fantastic in that. You want to see the breadth of that guy's talent, watch Search Party. He didn't really get a lot to show here. So to me, I don't need him to come back, but those three would have to come back in some form or shape or fashion for it to make sense. You could even have Zoe be a part of this because him and Zoe are probably together when we go into a new season. So absolutely would love to have them back.
So John, you've watched a little, so you're thinking a little Fast and Furious, bringing Jason Statham into the story. And then you're also thinking a little, Christoph Waltz in the Bond series of having, using Yasper maybe behind the scenes. Maybe he's the puppeteer. Okay. Well, Adriana, how about for you? Were you happy just to say this was a good series, 8 episodes? I liked how it did, and you were the first person to kind of point it out to say that, in the first episode was like the rom-com. The second episode was like the action. The third or fourth episode was like the Chelsea episode was the horror story. John pointed out how the Danner story is like an episode of like Law and Order.
Yeah.
So Adriana, are you satisfied with just this as a limited series, 8 episodes, or would you follow Danner, or maybe there's somebody else that you would want to follow in the series?
I think following Danner would be interesting, but my only thing with series like this, like the premise is so unique, especially with each episode being like a different genre. Like, how would you bring that into like a second season? So I don't know if you want to do that again, or like how you would keep the freshness in the second season. But yeah, I do think it would be great to see like Danner again, Yasper, and Anik, and all these characters like Zoe. But like, how would they like keep the freshest of the first season and like give us another good mystery or something going on that would be entertaining enough to, I guess, I don't know, keep that similar format. So I don't know if that's necessary, but it's something that really made this season like stand out like on its own.
Jana, how about for you? Do you like the series just as it is, to say, hey, you know what, we don't need to try to milk more from it, like this is perfect the way that it was and I'm satisfied? Or you're like, you know what, Danner could go explore, because she's a detective, she's a detective, like there's plenty of murders, there's robberies and everything else. Would you want to follow, and Tiffany Haddish is amazing too, would you want to follow her character into another whole season of something?
Yes, I would like to follow her in another season, but at the same time, how they're gonna bring that back? Because even the name of the series is Afterparty. Unless we have another after party, how you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how they're gonna connect that to a new story of with her. I would love to see her in a season 2, her partner as well. Even Indigo can be there too. So, but I don't know how they're gonna do it. But I'm good with this season. I'm good. I don't need to have another one, because I think it was like the closure was good. But Hollywood, they're gonna come up with an idea just to bring them back. Oh, we know that.
Yeah, true.
Well, I mean, because John threw out a great idea. John, because I think John's campaigning to be a staff writer on season 2 with the Indigo and the French episode with the subtitles in black and white and everything. I mean, that's at least one episode right there. That's at least one episode out of another 8 right there, right, John? So I mean, hey, it's like campaign to Lord and Miller right now to say that's what it is.
I'm down, please. I'd like their money, please. I'll write. I'll happily take a staff. Please.
Okay, well, finally, so then from start to finish, from seeing the thumbnail, from seeing all the different people attached, yes, Sam Richardson, Alana Glazer, seeing Zoe Chow, Ike Barinholtz, Lord and Miller, John, from the get-go, from because I didn't see any previews or anything. I just knew, hey, I like the talent. I like Lord and Miller, and that's why I hit play. And then we became our group of doing this after show. Yeah. So John, final thoughts on just the whole series, from when you first clicked on and just kept going all the way through. Was ever a point where you're like, I want to check out? Or you're like, no, man, this is a talented cast. The story is great, and I can't wait to finish.
I did enjoy the series overall. I do think there's it's not as magical or as supremely funny as I was hoping it was going to be, but overall, I think it was a good series, and definitely one that if you want to do a sequel to, you should definitely do that. If the numbers are there, I would be down for another adventure. But overall, I think there were some elements that were missing. They could have really made this like a Ted Lasso type series where people are like, oh my God, I gotta know who did it. I gotta get invested. I gotta find out. It could have taken over the pop culture mainstream, but it isn't. It's a very unique approach to things. And look, as great as Lord and Miller are to us in our bubble, they're not really making like $6 billion or anything like that. They have their things that they do, and they're successful doing the things that they do, and they're quite profitable doing the things that they do, but it's very specific. This is a very specific niche type of show. And so if you like these characters, if you like these actors, this is one that I think it was well worth my time, well worth watching, and didn't disappoint me. And so, there was some funny exchanges. There were some great performances. And I think this is a better crop of actors, comedic actors, than we had in the previous generation. And by that, I mean, I don't think you're going to see them do The House or those kind of vehicles where they all just get together for a weekend and write a movie. This felt more intelligent, more interesting, and their comedic performances have more depth. You can see the drama mixed in with the humor, and it's more real. And I think that felt very fun to explore and discover, because some of these actors I've only seen a couple of times or not at all. And then there's the main ones I've seen a lot. So it was a nice mix to discover some new talent, some new comedic talent. So overall, satisfied. Could it have been even better? Yes. But in the end, I give it probably 7.5, maybe an 8 overall out of 10. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, well worth your roughly 30 some minutes every for the past 8 weeks. So okay. Absolutely. Adriana, how about for you? From the time that you see the thumbnail with those actors that are involved, it's called The After Party. From the time you clicked on, and then as you watched, we get to the final episode, Yasper's the killer. Satisfied? Are you happy? Or are you or do you feel kind of like John does? I mean, is it somewhere around a 7 and 8, a little bit below, maybe even higher?
I'm really happy with it. I think I would say I have it as about a 7 or 8 too. So it's not perfect, but it was worth my time. I did really enjoy it. There was a satisfying ending with finding out Yasper was the killer. And when I initially saw the thumbnail, I really did want to see it because I do enjoy many of the actors in the show, like Dave Franco, Ben Schwartz, Ike Barinholtz, Alana Glazer, all those people. I was like, oh yes, these are some of my favorite people. So let me watch this and see. But I really did enjoy seeing all these comedic actors come together each week. And there's some people like Zoe Chow. I didn't know who she was before this, but I'm glad she seems like a really cool. I like her comedic acting, so I really enjoy this. And also, I didn't see Sam Richardson too much, but the cast is great. But and I loved it. I wouldn't mind if they did another series like that, but I really do hope it gets more attention because I haven't seen as many people outside of the critic bubble talking about it. So I'm really hoping that more people catch on to it, but because it's one of those, like you said, it's probably just might be a one standalone season. So.
For you that are listening and watching, just to kind of piggyback off of what Adriana's saying, Zoe Chow, you can catch her in season 1 of Love Life with Anna Kendrick. That's on HBO Max. And then Sam Richardson is really well known for being on Veep with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So she's on HBO Max as well, if you wanted to kind of explore more, like if you weren't as familiar with those characters like that Adriana just brought up. So Jana, how about for you? 8 weeks, roughly a little bit over 30 minutes. I mean, I guess the episodes if they drop like the first couple, but like they're all still like a little bit over 30 minutes. I mean, were you satisfied from when you hit play to the very, very end? Do you agree with John and Adriana somewhere around a 7, 8 out of 10?
Yeah, I'm satisfied. I like it, the series. I think that like the idea to have like different genres for the episodes. I liked it. I didn't care too much about the cartoonish, the cartoon episode.
So you didn't like the Zoe episode, okay?
Yeah, that was the episode was good. Got a lot of like information, but not the look. I didn't like it. For me, it was a little confused. I'm very honest here, but I know that brought a lot up to solve the murder, and I would do like 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it was John and Adriana and I that went over the Zoe episode, and so like that's why you were Jana off camera.
Yeah, I was off camera
because you didn't like that. No, I'm kidding, everybody. Kidding everybody.
No, that was my son's birthday. I couldn't. I was like,
I'm just kidding.
That to him.
I was curious to see what you thought of that episode, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah,
all right.
It was the least one for me, unfortunately.
Where can everybody find you? What are you up to before we close out the Hollywood Critics Association Afterparty Aftershow?
You can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to hang out on Twitch with me, The Outlaw Nation, all one word. And then my Outlaw Nation outlet there on YouTube, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. All week, it's Batman week, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm sure we're going to be dropping all kinds of content. So come and check out all the stuff I got going on with the Geek Buddies, Jedi Way, the John and Wendy show, and all the stuff in the Outlaw Nation show that we're going to be doing as well. And of course, if you missed the HCA awards, go back and watch those as well.
Adriana, how about for you? Where can everybody find you as we wrap out this after show of the after party?
Right, so you can find me on my site, thecinemasoloist.org, and then you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Adriana and Bloom, and I will be at the HCA Awards around, so you'll see me around tomorrow. I guess whenever you see on that day.
Jana, how about for you? Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Jana on Camera, my website, janaoncamera.com. I'm also collaborating with mamasgeek.com. She's also a HCA member. And also I write in Portuguese and speaks Portuguese, so gazetanews.com is a Brazilian newspaper. And you're going to see us, not just me, everybody else at HCA Film Award. That just check it out if you didn't check yet.
And everybody, I'm Rick Hong. You guys can find me on all social media at Rick Hong. And I am right now in the middle of 2 Apple Plus TV shows. One is Severance. I'm doing that after show for the Hollywood Critics Association. So please tune in for that. I'm also in the middle of doing another Apple TV Plus series, Servant, M. Night Shyamalan. So please feel free to tune into that if you miss me. But on behalf of all my co-hosts here, John Rocha, Adriana Gomez-Weston, and Jana Nagase, we'd like to thank you for tuning into this, and still put stuff in the comments and everything. You've been watching the Hollywood Critics Association After Party After Show. Thank you.